Some of you know I worked at Emergency Food Network with Helen McGovern, who's my boss, my hero, my mentor now. Helen and I, Emergency Food Network had a great mission, incredible mission. We were both passionate about feeding people food in Pierce County, emergency food. And we had conversations all the time about how our goal or our dream was to go out of business, to end poverty and feed everybody. Pretty easy task, right? Let's just end poverty. I think it's been tried for a while, and it's not really going that well. I did a lot of thinking about, what needs to change. I mean, I won't get into a long diatribe about why poverty exists. Systemic oppression, institutionalized racism, financial systems that we operate under. Just know that I think about this stuff a lot. And I was thinking about it a lot when Helen and I would have these conversations. And about 2 years ago, I read a book by John Hope Bryant called How the Poor Can Save Capitalism. And it talked about how within the current system that we operate under, there are people who don't have access to capital. But if you can get people access to capital, if you can boost community credit scores, you can begin to see neighborhoods transform. That folks who are locked out of financial systems, if they have access, you'll start to see new businesses. You'll start to see grocery stores pop up where the 7-Eleven used to be, and banks pop up where the payday lenders used to be. So with this in mind, the job at Sound Outreach came open, and I applied. It seemed like a great place to, sort of a platform to see if I could test out some of these things. The reason why it was such a great platform was because it was a struggling agency. They were willing to hire someone with no experience as an executive director because of that. So I thought there'd be sort of room to get in there and play around a little bit with some of these concepts. And the mission was perfect. Our mission is to compassionately guide people through the complex array of services needed to achieve sustainable, independent lives. And we do that through connecting people to benefits, food stamps, health insurance, tax prep, homelessness services, homebuyer education, all things that help people get to stable places. So it seemed like a logical place to see how credit, financial systems could blend with human services. I knew we had no cash reserves, but when I got there, I found out that things were a little bit more challenging than I knew, which means you should do your due diligence when you make a tremendous life decision to leave a cush job with a great director and a huge budget and everyone who loves your mission to go to a place that no one really knew about in the community, had been around for 20 years, no one knew about. 87% government grant funded, 12% foundation funded, which most of that was one foundation, and 1% donor supported. So 50 people on an Excel spreadsheet after 20 years who were giving about $9,000 a year. And most of those folks were board members and other social service people who are kind and generous. Plus, we were losing out to all the other agencies for contracts because we did a lot of services that other agencies did. And those are some of the questions that funders would ask me. What is it that you do differently than everyone else? And I was like, well, we're out in the community more. We're spread out in Pierce County, but that was it. I mean, we were doing a lot of the same stuff that other agencies did. The other thing is we had an $80,000 budget gap that we had to close. I should tell you, this was 18 months ago, so that's kind of the time frame we're talking about. Had a $80,000 budget gap, and I thought I had a year, because it was January, but I found out our fiscal year ended September 30th, so I had 9 months to close the $80,000 budget gap. And I was like, how am I going to do this financial dream of mine? How am I going to work on this vision when I have all this other stuff to do? Save an agency, get our contracts all better, get the staff firing at high gear. So I did it both at the same time and just didn't get a lot of sleep. That was really what I decided to do. So while I was working on saving the agency and the budget, I developed a plan for financial empowerment. It meant taking our part-time housing counselor and making her a full-time financial counselor. And I got some funding from the Bamford Foundation, which is great. That kind of, blessing or curse, that kind of sent me down this path because I got the first piece of the puzzle in place. But I wrote out, okay, microlending, match savings accounts, entrepreneurship training, things like that can maybe help communities, and mix financial services with social services. I went to a bunch of different foundations, and one foundation looked at my plan and said, we're not interested in helping you with coaches. That was my sort of one-year goal, get more coaches. But tell me more about this microlending. So I hadn't really thought about it much, but I said, I don't know, $200,000 to start small businesses, maybe give that a shot. So, so the person I was talking to said, well, flesh it out a little bit more. We're kind of interested in this. Just come back to me. So I went to a credit union partner, a friend, not really a friend, but someone that I knew in the credit union world. I said, John, could your credit union help us underwrite $200,000 in loans to people for small business creation? And he said, well, the cost of underwriting a $500 loan is the same as a $50,000 loan. So that's really, like if you're talking about small dollar loans, it's really challenging. But what you can do is you can call that $200,000 a loan guarantee fund. So we can put it in a fund over here, and you can insure credit union lending. So assuming a 20% loan loss for folks who ordinarily wouldn't qualify for a loan, because you just can't get access. But we're trying to get people access. So he's like, okay, if you're guaranteeing our losses 20%, we'll give loans to people who ordinarily wouldn't qualify, as long as they have a coach and as long as you're guaranteeing the loan. So I was like, great, that's amazing. So with $200,000, we can do $1 million in lending. I went back to the community, got a bunch of agencies together and told them about this, because I knew I needed more help in conceptualizing this. So there were a bunch of agencies around the table, and I said, well, what can we do here? How can this work? And I'd also done some research. I went up to Seattle and met with other agencies that do lending. I was researching online, like Kiva Zip and Grameen Foundation, places that do lending. And microlending in developing countries is sort of a proven thing. You can start a business with 20 people with $2,000. But in the United States, $2,000, $5,000, it won't go very far. Around the table with other providers, though, we came up with a great idea. Let's see how we can use microlending to help people navigate out of poverty. So a loan to pay off your predatory lender, a loan to pay off your parking tickets to get your driver's license back so you can get to work or to a job interview, a loan to take a vocational class, or a loan to buy yarn for your sweater shop or tools for your carpentry business. Maybe support one job or two possibly with a small loan, but really just get people in the habit of borrowing and paying back, learning how credit works, getting access to more credit when your credit score goes up. That's financial inclusion, and that's what people in poverty are locked out of. 20% of folks in Pierce County are unbanked or underbanked, meaning if you can't get a bank account, you have to turn to predatory alternative financing. You have to go to a payday lender. You have to go to check cashing to cash your paycheck, to a check cashing place, which, the fees alone can be $1,000 a year. $40,000 over a working lifetime. So rent to own and buy here, pay here auto dealerships where you're paying 29% interest to drive off a lot with a lemon. This is the stuff we wanted to tackle. So great. I went back to the foundation and told them the plan. But I said, I'm too busy trying to save this agency to do any more research on this. I knew we needed a plan. They gave us $5,000 to hire a consultant to write a business plan. we found a credit union consultant in the area that writes CDFI. I won't get into what a CDFI is because that would take too long, but it's a national designation a credit union can get, or a financial institution, to help low-income people. And they write these grants nationally. They said they'd do this work for us, about $30,000 worth of work for $5,000, because they believed in what we were doing. They found a credit union partner for us. The original credit union said, we can't really afford to underwrite these, but they found a partner for us who was willing to underwrite these loans and partner with us, which was amazing. But the other thing this credit union said they do is, there are loan guarantee funds nationally that CDFIs use, and that's where I stole the idea from. But as far as I can tell, there are no nonprofits that have loan guarantee funds. No one else is really trying that. So that's one thing that we're doing that's kind of unique that this credit union was excited about. But the other thing that they were willing to do was take our case managers who are out in the community and train them to introduce financial products into the community. So a nonprofit case manager trained essentially as a credit union teller, which breaks down trust barriers that people have from going into a financial institution. We'd be doing the work out in the community, at the food banks where we work, at our partner agencies, wherever we have coaches. So I was getting really excited about this. This was like incredible, this stuff that they were gonna train us to do. And they were inventing products for us, credit building loans, prepaid debit cards. Our staff will be able to sign up people for prepaid debit cards. So with an $8,000 limit potentially per month. So your paycheck, your public benefits, your tax refund can all be paid onto the debit card for like a $5 monthly fee instead of a $60 fee at the check cashing place. So all stuff that could really help people. And right about this time, this was last November or October, at the same time, our budget year ended. We finished $40,000 ahead, which was great. November came around, and biggest nightmare, when you have a funding structure that's 87% government funded, one of our government funders had changed their funding priorities, and we lost about a quarter to a third of our budget, including the only money I had to pay our outreach staff, who I thought would be the ones to be introducing these financial products in the community. So, I've been working really hard, and this is really kind of deflating, to say the least. So I did a couple things. I had recruited a bunch of new board members who were excited about this vision, and I had to recruit board members. What Maureen was saying about stacking your board, it wasn't really stacking. We didn't really have anyone on the board, so I had to go out and recruit them. Now I'm not allowed to recruit folks. They do it, but it's fine. It's working well. But I went back to the board, and we all we decided to take a good, close look at the finances daily. I'm checking our bank account daily, seeing whether we need to tap into our line of credit, whether we need to let staff go. And we had conversations about whether we should shut down or not. But we decided that this idea that we have, this vision that no one's doing, was too important to give up on yet, until we could see if it could work out or until we had to shut down. So we decided to push forward and just make sure we were looking at everything and weren't going to get in trouble financially by running out of money. The other thing I did was I had to address this issue of competing with other nonprofits that have a similar mission to ours, because I was tired of getting snaked by other agencies for funding, applying for the same funding, and they get it and I don't. I'm just like, man, this is really demoralizing. So I went to our biggest competitors where we have the most overlap, to two different directors, and said, look, I've been scared to tell anybody what we're doing because I don't want anyone else to do it. But this is what we're going to do. And I laid out the whole plan for each one of them, separate meetings. And I said, if you have any intention of doing this, if you're going to do anything close to this, please tell me now. I'll shut down my agency. I'll pass it off to you to do, because you have infrastructure, you have resources, and you can do it. But if you have no intention of doing this, please let me know. And they both said, nope, this is too sophisticated for what we're aiming for. It sounds like a great plan. You go for it. So great. Like, we had a niche. Our agency has a niche that no one else is filling, and we're doing things that no one else is doing as far as I can see nationally. So that gave me some energy to move forward. A bunch of agencies were coming forward at that time saying, can you send staff over to help our clients? And I said, no, I don't have any staff to send to you. And we were getting lots of calls for this because we partner with a lot of agencies, and they knew that we have staff embedded at food banks, so folks were asking. And Carol Milgard Breast Center said, we want someone. What if we gave you the money, you hired someone, but they're just our person? You train them and, they just come to us every day. I was like, this is a great idea. Yes. Unfortunately, they didn't come up with the money. But a couple weeks later, Tacoma Housing Authority approached us and said, we want somebody, and I said, aha, I have an idea for you. What if you give us the money, then you can have this person full-time, year-round, they're your person. They said, great. It's a big agency, it took many months, but here's where we are now with everything, from deciding to stick with this. Tacoma Housing Authority is our first contracting agency. They gave us money to hire someone who's embedded. Their counselor, their financial coach, started a month ago. The city of Tacoma gave us $80,000 to hire a coordinator for a microlending program. He started a week and a half ago. Our business plan came in Wednesday, the final draft, and it's incredible. The credit union was involved in developing the business plan. The loan guarantee that we have to ensure is not a 1-to-5 ratio, it's a 1-to-20 ratio. So all they're asking is about a 5% guarantee. So if we raise $5,000, we can do $100,000 in lending. If we raise $60,000, we could potentially do $1 million in lending. The credit union is going to use this relationship to apply to be a CDFI, get certified with the Treasury Department. In 2018, if this all works out, they could have an extra $1.5 million for our loan guarantee fund, which can lead to $33 million in lending in the community. There are 3 or 4 other agencies looking to contract with us right now for embedding one of our staff. And these are like amazing opportunities, working with gang-involved youth to start businesses, working with Clover Park students on entrepreneurship, working at Tacoma Public Utilities potentially with customers who can't pay their utility bills. None of this is happening yet, but we're in negotiations, so we'll see. It's, some things work out and some things don't. But we're on this path, and we're moving forward, and it's all starting to work, which sometimes makes me actually cry that it's actually working. Knock on wood, somebody. What I've learned is to really stick to the vision, even if it's kind of insane and you lose sleep over it. I'm sticking to this vision because I think it can work. And we bring value to other agencies and their clients. The process of talking to other agencies about who's the best agency to do this work? How can we not compete for this, but actually work together, or one step back and one step up? I've used that with other agencies where I've said, okay, you go for it, because you're the best agency to go for this funding. Because this competition thing in Pierce County, it doesn't work. There's not enough to go around. We're not King County where there's a ton of resources. We all have to work together. So that's what I've learned, and we're going to push forward still with this and until the money runs out, I guess. So.